Hello class, today we're going to be talking about the circumference of a circle and how do we find it. But before we get started, does anyone know what a circle is? Yes, a circle is a round shape that has no corners and no edges. So here, like as seen in the whiteboard, this is going to be what a circle is. Now, before we get into what circumference is, let's talk about some terminology. There is the center of the circle. The center of the circle is going to be signified as a center point which lies in the middle of the circle. And then that point is going to be where we're going to be able to find where our radius is at. Our radius is any point from the circumference. So the circumference is actually the distance around the circle. So any point from any point from anywhere in the circumference that's connected to that center point is going to be the radius. So let's say we have point A. Point A, we'll label it right over here. We'll label that as point A. So point A to the center of the circle, that's going to be our radius. So we're going to connect those 2 points by a straight line. So that's our radius in this circle. Now, diameter is going to be another terminology. The diameter is going to be a straight line that passes from one side of the circumference into the center of the circle onto the other side of the circumference. So it's going to be a straight line. So we could label those points as point B and point D. So we connect those 2 points by a straight line going in through the center of the circle. That's going to be what our diameter will be. So point B going in through the center, going to point D. So it's a straight line that passes through the center of the circle. That's our diameter. Now with those terminologies, now we can move into what circumference is. Circumference is going to be the distance traveled around the circle. So from point A, the distance traveled all the way around, going back into point A. That's going to be the whole distance around the circle traveled, which is the circumference. And that's going to be known as circumference is equal to 2 times pi times r. Now what is pi? Pi is going to be the ratio of the circumference. Is going to be 3.14. So pi is equal to 3.14. And now we don't have the radius, but we could go ahead and give that radius a length. Let's just say that our radius is going to be 5 inches. So from the center of the point to point A is going to be 5 inches. That's our radius. So we could go ahead and write down our radius as well. So radius is equal to 5 inches. Now that we see this, now are we able to find the circumference of the circle? Yes, we are, because the circumference is 2 pi r. And we already have pi and r. Now we just have to plug in the numbers. So we'll go circumference is equal to 2 times 3.14 times 5. Now you could use a calculator for this. So we'll have 3.14 times 5. It gives us 15.7. So now we have circumference is equal to 2 times 15.7. And then we multiply 15.7 times 2. And then we get 31.4. So we have circumference is equal to 31.4 inches. Any questions? Well, now that we have the circumference of the circle, now let's try doing it, but now with the diameter. If they give us a diameter, they don't give us a radius. Now let's see how that will look. So we're going to go ahead and erase all this. So let's just say they just give you a circle just like this. And now they give you the diameter, which once again, what is diameter? Yes, diameter is a straight line that passes from one point of the circumference through the center and to the other side. So it's going to be a straight line passing through the center of the circle. So now they are giving us this problem and they're saying that the diameter will be 10 inches. So the diameter is actually 10 inches. So from, let's label this point A and point D. So from point A to point D, that's our diameter, will be equal to 10 inches. So going back to our formula for the circumference of the circle, we have circumference is equal to 2 pi r. Okay, so how do we find the radius now? So once again, the radius, we said that it was at the center of the circle going into any given point on the other side of the circumference. So halfway, right? So now the radius is going to be half of the diameter. So from this point right here, which is the center of the circle, to point D, and then from point center to point A, those are both radius. So if the diameter is 10, the radius will be divided by 2. So each radius is 5 inches. And that will be our radius throughout any of the given points in the circumference. So let's just say we have also point E, and then we have the center of the circle going to point E would also be 5 inches, and so on and so on. So that's how we find the radius of the circle. The radius of the circle is actually half of the diameter. So now we plug in our formula, which we have circumference is equal to 2 pi r. So now we know that pi, it's always going to be 3.14. So pi is equal to 3.14, and then our radius is half of the diameter, which is going to be 5 inches. Do you see any similarities between this one and the last problem? Yes, the last problem gave us the actual radius. This problem just gave us the diameter, which is the same, but initially in the other problem we had started with the radius first, versus here we started with the diameter, and then we're having to divide it by 2 to find the radius. So we have the same problem, so we're going to have circumference is equal to 2 times 3.14 times 5. Right? All right, so as we knew from before, we have the circumference is equal to 2 times 15.7. And that's when we multiply 3.14 times 5, we get 15.7. Then we multiply it by 2, and then at the end we get the circumference is equal to 31.4 inches. So this is saying that the circumference of the circle is 31.4 inches. So that's saying that from point A, if we travel around from point A all the way around back to point A, that's our circumference of the circle. That's going to be a total distance of 31.4 inches. All right, so now that we were able to find the circumference of a circle within the whiteboard, we're gonna go ahead and jump into some hands-on activities. So using a compass, we're gonna be able to draw some circles in a piece of paper. And then after drawing those circles, we're gonna go ahead and measure the circumference with a piece of string. With the string, you're gonna measure the circumference, which again, the circumference is the total distance traveled around the circle. So from point A, you're gonna make sure you traveled around the circle, going back into the same point that you started with. So that is gonna cover the total distance of the circle. And then with a ruler in inches, you're gonna measure your string to see what was the circumference of the circle. Now, after you finish the activity, we're gonna go ahead and go over the homework. And for next week, we're gonna be talking about the area of a circle. Does anybody know what the area of a circle is, or how do you find the area of the circle?